World-famous heavy metal musician Jon Schaffer, prosecuted in the January 6 incident, former Attorneys for Freedom client and current friend, stops by the studio to tell his story. You're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned. This is attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. Victor from the Attorneys for Freedom law firm, here today with a very special guest in the studio. How you doing today, Marc?
Dude, how often is it that we get to have a real rock star in our studio?
This is the first time in the history of the podcast where we have a legitimate rock star in the studio. I'm just not going to waste any time. We'll introduce him. Jon, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. Really happy to be here with you guys.
Great to have you on the podcast. Man, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yes, we have.
Because your saga has been a long one, and we've been wanting to tell this tale for quite a while.
Yes. It's been quite a journey.
For those who don't know you, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, I'm Jon Schaffer. I'm a songwriter and the leader of a heavy metal band called Iced Earth. I've had other projects, Demons and Wizards, Sons of Liberty, probably got me into most trouble. Schaefer Barlow Project, but various projects, written a lot of songs, did a lot of touring around the world.
Yeah, really a music career spanning 3 decades.
Yeah.
And in addition to being a very prolific and well-traveled musician with fans all over the world, you're also an outspoken political activist. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pro-founding principle America, and we've obviously drifted pretty far from that. So that's bothered me for a long time, and but that's for whatever reason, probably has a lot to do with my father and studying, and I just love the story of the founding of this country. As imperfect as we are, it's the best. I mean, and we can be better. We can definitely be better than what we are now. And so that I don't like to get into the left-right part of this, because that's not really that's not where my passion is. It's pro-freedom, and I want our country and the world to get back to that. And that's what I've tried to express. And a lot of people have, put me in a box of being, a right-wing extremist and this kind of stuff. And that's, I don't consider freedom to be extreme.
Yeah. And I mean, we feel the same way. It's kind of nonsensical even to talk about it in terms of the left-right comparison of politics in the year 2025 in the United States, because what left-right means now doesn't mean anything, in a similar way that it meant back at the founding.
Right.
It's about the principles, right?
Exactly.
The principles. Marc and I are huge proponents. We love the story of this country. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. We are a country founded by a ragtag group of treasonous rebels who turned to the biggest tyrant in the world and said, you ain't in charge of us. You think you're in charge of us. You think you own these colonies. You're wrong.
That's right.
And, they did it at a time when they really didn't have a lot of confidence that they could win the upcoming Revolutionary War, which they knew was coming.
Right.
I mean, King George III, he was pretty powerful, a lot more powerful than the 13 colonies. I mean, imagine signing a document, putting your name, and John Hancock, probably the shortest guy there, puts his name extra big. He's reported to have done that because he wanted King George to see his name on the Declaration of Independence and then send that. This isn't just, guys hiding in the shadows talking a bunch of trash about the government. These are guys who signed one of the more radical documents ever to be written in the history of the world, sent it to arguably the most powerful person in the world, and said, come get us. And had he got them, they would have been hanged for treason and for good cause. I mean, the American Revolution was a treasonous, violent revolt against their own government. I mean, we should be clear about what it was. I mean, certainly we're not proponents of violence, but our country was born in a violent, treasonous revolution against King George. And I also got to add, if you read the long train of abuses, it doesn't seem so terrible.
At least compared to the abuses our government has today, right?
Yeah, you think about the Boston Tea Party, and of course, people know I'm from Boston, and Sam Adams and crowd, dressed up in costumes to hide their appearance, went on the ships in Boston Harbor and threw the King's tea into Boston Harbor. Do you know what the tax was on that tea?
It was 2%.
2%. Like, we're not putting this is outrageous. We're not going to put up with this. I mean, that's kind of the guys who founded our country. And so, this is really the thing that I think drew us to Jon Schaffer, right? I mean, we've done thousands and thousands of cases. I've been representing people 30 years. But when you get the privilege of representing somebody who's really committed to the same fundamental ideas that we're committed to. I don't know how many videos we've done, Andy, where you've been like the left, the right. We're not loyal to any of that stuff. We're pro-freedom. And there are things about the right that are more pro-freedom. There are arguments on the left that are more pro-freedom. But we're for freedom straight down the line. Competent adults get to live their lives however they want to live their lives. As long as they don't interfere with anyone else. There's nothing more American than that idea.
100%. And I would have signed that document.
Me too.
Proudly.
Man. Yeah, I would have been a little nervous about it, to be fair.
Absolutely.
To be fair, yeah.
Hey, I mean, a lot of those guys suffered big, and we don't get taught that. And I kind of wonder sometimes, is that on purpose? Because if those core American principles were focused on in the education system, do you guys think we would be in the kind of shape we would be in right now? I don't know.
People should be proud to be an American. Mm-hmm. I'm damn proud to be an American. Look, our country.
We got the coolest origin story.
We do.
Totally.
I mean, look, our country's not perfect, and we've made mistakes. We've done things wrong, but perfection isn't the standard. The ideas, the principles that we were founded on in our country are damn impressive. And what happened there, we really should, when you celebrate the 4th of July, you should think about the people who really stuck their necks out there to fight for freedom and liberty and, the things they said. Imagine a politician getting up today and saying, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And I think he was talking about every 20 years, too. I remember reading
Jefferson, yes, he was.
Yes, Jefferson said, imagine a politician saying that today. He'd probably be locked up.
Probably.
Just for saying it.
Yeah.
Well, I have a different reason why I was drawn to Jon Schaffer, other than his pro-freedom positions. Some of our audience knows, and if you've looked at our website bios and everything knows, I'm actually a heavy metal musician. I was in a heavy metal band for 16 years. And so I've been listening to Jon's music since I was like 13 years old. So
that's awesome,
I was,
man.
in addition to being a huge fan of his pro-freedom positions, I was a bit starstruck in that sense in this case, which made it even more of an honor to represent you in the January 6th prosecution.
I didn't know that until the night before sentencing. So you guys, I think Marc said when we had our first initial talk that Andy was a musician and he'd heard of the band. And of course, my life's burning down. So I'm like, okay, cool. But let's.
Yeah.
But then the night before sentencing, when you told me you were a huge Demons and Wizards fan and been following my career and stuff, it's very humbling, man.
Yeah, I remember we had dinner the night before your sentencing. We went out to D.C. and we all went to dinner. And I remember, because of course, we keep an air of professionalism and everything like that when we're working on a client's case. And that seemed like the right time to reveal that I've actually been a huge fan of yours for years.
Yeah, it was super cool. I do want to give a shout out to Tom Woods because it was through a friend that was helping me find an attorney. And Tom is the one that recommended you guys. And I hold you guys in very high regard. I mean, the Attorneys for Freedom, it's not just a really badass name, it's a way of life here. And I can feel that. And I knew it. And I was like, for me, it was, if I'm going down in flames, at least I know I've got fire-breathing freedom fighters on my side through this. And it gave me a level of comfort. And I knew that immediately after talking to you guys.
Yeah, I was really honored that Tom Woods had referred you over to us. I've been on Tom's show. I mean, he's a hardcore pro-freedom guy. Anybody hasn't checked out Tom Woods' show should check out his podcast. I've been on there. I've spoken to him. He's a real freedom guy.
He is. He's amazing.
Yeah, I love to hang out with, anybody can say they're for freedom. In fact, everybody says they're for freedom. But are you really for freedom?
Right.
You really, do you support the rights of other people to do things that you don't like, that you think are immoral or unwise or unhealthy? That's where the rubber hits the road.
Yes.
I mean, that you support people doing things that you also do. Okay, that's not so impressive, but do you support the rights of other competent adults to do things you don't do, right? It's like the person who hates guns. Do you support the right of competent adults to keep and bear arms? The person who says, I'm not into the gay thing. It's not, I don't like that. And okay, fine. But do you support the rights of other people to be gay? If that's their business, Do your thing. Live your life. That's what America's about. That's what freedom is about. And it can be hard sometimes.
Yes. I mean, and that's live and let live, baby. That's the whole, that's it.
Give me some for live and let live.
We're going to talk about live and let live, because I think that kind of brings together a lot of the principles that we all agree with here at this table. Yes. Before we do that, let's dive into your case.
Okay.
So you were involved at the incident that took place at the Capitol, January 6th of 2021. Why don't you start out by kind of giving the background there and how you got involved in that?
Well, I was very concerned, obviously, with the things that were going on in the summer of 2020. Well, even before that, because the COVID situation was very extreme. I mean, the overreach from the government, and it really bothered me that some businesses were deemed essential and others weren't. You know, a lot of these gigantic corporations were mom and pop businesses, that's my family, that's where I come from. And people I care about that have those types of small businesses were getting decimated. And it's just really, I mean, I just couldn't buy the narrative at all. So I was angry about that. And then when people started all of the riots and, you know, they're killing police officers and doing billions of dollars worth of damage, burning federal buildings, I literally thought that this was it, that the republic is collapsing. It's done. And that had me gravely concerned, and really the level of love that I have for this country, it's deep, and it's worth dying for. And I thought that that's actually where we were headed. I mean, I really believe that. I've never seen so much chaos and so much brutality going on, and no consequences. Like, what's happening here? And
you weren't even prosecuting people. These thefts, prosecutors were like, we're not even prosecuting people for this stuff.
Yeah, and you have politicians that are out raising money to bail them out. The ones that did get in and even got locked up overnight or whatever. And I'm like, that's the collapse of the rule of law. That's the collapse of our republic. This is serious.
And institutional collapse in terms of institutions that the public used to trust. Definitely, you know, having serious problems in terms of gaining trust with the public, losing trust, frankly.
Yes.
So remember, just all the different conflicting things coming out of the CDC at that time is a perfect illustration of this. If there was a Black Lives Matter gathering or something like that, which a lot of times turned into a Black Lives Matter fueled riot, that was deemed by the CDC as, oh, okay, that's an acceptable time when you can have a public gathering. But I remember it was like a week later after they made such a statement, there were some protests, you might call them more right-wing protests, that were done with people saying, we need to reopen everything, we need to reopen businesses, and you might even call them pro-Trump rallies in some places, and the CDC said, whoa. That is not an acceptable gathering. COVID's very dangerous. You can't get together. So they were making statements that were contrary to common sense, obviously politically motivated, and they were definitely showing a lot of cracks in the institutions and the structure. And I think the public, a large section of the public, started losing confidence in our institutions.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Yeah. It's not all back. I have to be clear about that. I don't like that feeling. I don't think anybody likes that feeling, you know? So it was a very concerning period for me.
Yeah. I had a proposal back then of how we could open up maybe sporting events or something like that. Just make Black Lives Matter the sponsor of the sporting event, maybe put their logo in the middle of the field, because, you know, COVID can't survive when it's a Black Lives Matter type of an organ. But at any rate, suffice it to say there was a lot of public distrust at that point. So leading up to your involvement in January 6th, I remember there was a couple of kind of street interviews where people would stick microphones in your face. It was usually when you were at maybe a rally or an event. They harvested a couple of little quotes out from a couple of those interviews, which the prosecutor later used in the criminal prosecution to try to impute some bad faith to you. Do you remember what you said in those interviews?
I remember the crux of it. I'm sure, knowing me, I was talking about the Federal Reserve System hijacking our country in 1913, because I do believe that's a big part of what happened. But I also definitely remember saying that we don't want violence, but if somebody wants to bring it, we're going to respond, because we weren't out there burning property and that's not what that movement is about. Whether I separate it from Trump, because that there was a lot of that, but I think there was also just a lot of people that were really pro-America, regardless of whatever political party is involved. There were so many. That's one thing I noticed about D.C. was when I went there in November. It was a huge swath of America. All races. There were like gays for Trump signs out there and all kinds of stuff. So it was like a love fest, man. It was not what the media was portraying. I didn't see any violence, but of course we were concerned about that, about somebody bringing it to us. And there were people on the periphery of the march that looked a little bit shady. So, and I think that reporter asked me, are you expecting violence today? And I think that's, if I remember right, that's when I said, well, we don't want that. But, if somebody wants to get violent or try to hurt other people, I mean, we're going to respond to that.
And of course, they focused on the second half of that quote. Yeah, if somebody wants to fight, we're going to fight him back, kind of an implication there.
Yep.
But leading up to January 6th, your personal views, would you consider yourself a big-time hardcore pro-MAGA Republican Trump sycophant type? What's your personal political views?
I would wish it was MAFA, Make America Free Again. I would rather that than the great makes me think of empire a little bit. And that's the thing that I don't like about where all this has gone, especially in the last 100, plus 100 years. I support a lot of the things that Donald Trump stands for and that movement, but not all of it. And I didn't even vote for Trump in 2016. I was done with federal elections. I was done. I was going to focus on state and local because it just seemed pointless, And then after he got elected, the amount of hate that he took from the media, I had never seen anything in my life like that. So I actually started paying attention, and I thought, I know they're terrible. So I'm going to look into this guy a little bit. And I like a lot of what he stands for, but I don't agree with everything. So that's totally fine. We're Americans.
Right.
That's the way we're supposed to have discussions, reasonable discussions about where we think things should go. And but I will, forever be grateful for the pardon, obviously. I mean, I think what happened to us, all the J6ers, was a grave injustice, and it's a black stain on this country's history.
Well, let's talk about January 6th. So you showed up down there for that rally, and you brought bear spray with you, right? And why did you bring bear spray with you?
Well, because I knew you couldn't bring firearms, and I wasn't even inclined to do that. But I thought there's a possibility that I'd have to defend myself or other people. It's like a crowd control.
From who? Who were you worried about?
Specifically, the groups that were destroying everything in 2020. Antifa, BLM. It's weird to me. Antifa is supposed to be anti-fascist.
Right.
I'm probably the most anti-fascist guy that I know.
Right.
Maybe besides you guys.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like, but when you behave like that, you're just
totally.
You're just coming up with a name, like Federal Reserve, not federal, no reserves.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of a thing that bothered me about their behavior and what they're supposed to stand for. I mean, if I sung about anti-fascism in Sons of Liberty all over the lyrical content of that album, so for anybody to lump me in there because I'm a Trump supporter or an American patriot to call me a fascist, no, that's not.
And another awesome band, by the way, that people should dig up. And I say dig up because there's been a concerted effort to try to remove that from the internet, and maybe
they did remove it. It's completely
but you're working on a re-release, so everybody keep an eye out for that.
Yep.
So you show up down there for the Trump rally on January 6th. You listen to that. What happens after that? Walk us through what happened.
Obviously it was there was a lot of concerns, and I think legitimately so. And I think a lot of the things that are coming out have been coming out for a while for people that are really paying attention, is that there was some shady stuff that went on with that election. So that was the big reason that everybody was there. And I also thought it would be really cool to see Trump speak because of the experience that I had in November at I think it was called the Stop the Steal rally. It was a love fest, man. I mean, these are people that really love the country, and it was just so cool to be. And there were so many people I've never seen it. And I've played festivals that have 100,000 people, and it was beyond that. It was just unbelievable the amount of people and the just that sense of Americana. It was really there. So I wanted to go back, and also I wanted to see what was going to happen with the electors, if it was going to get sent back to the states and all that. But to see Trump speak, because, it was obvious he was on his way out.
And somewhat famously now, I guess, you wind up entering the Capitol on January 6th. Tell us about how that came about.
There was supposed to be an event, a speaker's event there on the Capitol grounds. There was allegedly a permit. That's what I heard about. And I think General Flynn was going to speak there. There were several speakers. So that's why the people were moving towards the Capitol. Trump did say peacefully and patriotically. He never incited violence. So all that stuff was, really, the media just does a great disservice to this country. But anyway, so after he's done speaking, we start heading that way. And when I get to the Capitol and I just see it's complete pandemonium. I mean, it's surrounded. There's like tear gas canisters going off above. And
so who did you go with down there?
I went there with a friend of mine.
Okay.
Yep.
And so the two of you are just walking towards the Capitol and you look up and you see this pandemonium. What's in your head at this point?
It didn't seem, I know people were on edge, but it still just didn't seem like the way that patriots would behave, and that there would be that kind of pandemonium or violence or anything like that. I mean, I know people were on edge and people were upset about what they think was a stolen election. And I think we're going to still be learning about this for a while to come. So it's plausible that did happen, or at a minimum, you can say that there was interference just by the Hunter Biden laptop not being that whole story being squashed.
Being suppressed.
Yeah, that would have made a difference for sure.
Yeah, so there's no question about that, right? That story was suppressed by the media. We can speculate about what would have happened had that story come out, why it was suppressed. All that's swirling around.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different issue. Right. And so, I did believe at the time it was stolen. After everything happened, I wasn't really sure, especially after talking to you and learning about from the legal side and some cases that were happening. And so I was, okay, maybe it didn't. I believed that it did. So I really felt like there was a coup happening. And I know people felt that way, but I still didn't, I couldn't really believe what I was seeing. But I go up the stairs and I'm feeling like, I thought there was grenades going off, and I don't know if it was in the building or it was just loud. So maybe they were flashbangs. I don't know, but I'm getting more and more concerned. So I'm charging up there to see what's going on. And I saw some people trying to break windows wearing MAGA gear. That didn't make any sense to me, like up on scaffolding, masked up too. Also not typically a MAGA thing. And I yelled at them, and then it was just, there was a lot going on. Actually, where I was at, it was relatively calm on that particular part of the Capitol. I don't know. I think it's not a normal entrance, that's for sure, because there was no handles on the door to go in there. It was like magnetically sealed. You're not getting in that building unless somebody unlocks it. So I thought maybe it's an area for, afterwards thinking about, maybe it's an area for photo ops if there's dignitaries visiting or whatever. But the door opens. I can see the police officer, the Capitol police officer, through the door, communicating with what I'm assuming is a camera up in the corner, pointing to the door to unlock it. They unlock the door and opens the door, and a group of people come out. As the door was closing, there was another group of people that were already out in that outer area where I was. There was probably 4 or 5 of them, and they were yelling to the police officer, "Hey, can we go in there?" Because he just let a small group of people out. And he was like, "Yeah, come on in."
All right, so let me make sure I understand that about your entrance into the Capitol. You saw the door open up, directed by a Capitol police officer.
Yes.
That opened the door. A group came out.
Yes.
Who was the group that came out?
I have no idea.
Were they clad in MAGA gear? Is there any identifying characteristics about?
Not that I recall. I mean, I don't remember. I just remember like 4 or 5 people, maybe 6, something like that.
Fair enough. So you watch a group of people come out basically allowed to come out by the Capitol Police.
Yeah, he opened the door.
Then somebody else, not you, but somebody who you were able to hear, asked them if they could go inside, asked
Yes.
the Capitol police officer if they could enter, and they answered in the affirmative.
Yes,
Yeah.
and waved them in.
Yeah.
And let him come in. Then the door closed, and some period of time passed, and another group came rushing out of there. And there were 3 different voices out of this group of people. One said, the cops are afraid. Another guy said, they're beating an old man in there. And another guy said, let's go. And I just got sucked up in the moment and rushed in with them.
All right. So then you end up entering the building. What makes you enter the building?
So out of the groups of people that were coming in, there were people yelling that some old man's getting beaten up in there. So that was my impulsive decision to want to go and help somebody. That's it.
Okay.
That's why you entered the Capitol.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple
So what
as that.
happens when you get in there? What do you see?
I get in there and I see police officers, like the line going backwards. I see also over to the right, I see a police officer hitting what I assumed was like a biker vet. He looked like an older guy, looked like a biker, and they were hitting him with a baton, and that obviously triggered me, and I just started yelling at the cops.
Yeah, there's a picture that came out in the press of you actually in the Capitol pointing. You remember that picture?
Yeah.
What's in your mind at the time that picture's taken?
I just felt like there was a tremendous amount of injustice, so I was pissed off.
What are you pointing at? What are you saying?
At the police, I was saying stuff about their oaths and, what are you guys doing? And yelling at them about, how dare you hit this old man? And what, I don't know. I mean, it was like so fast.
Okay. How long were you in the Capitol for?
I think the court documents said 8 or 9 minutes. I can't remember. And I wouldn't have been in there that long, but I did get sprayed with some kind of chemical irritant. So I was glued to the wall for a while trying to get my vision back.
Did you ever pull out your bear spray?
I did, because somebody in the mob grabbed onto it, and it had a little Velcro strip on it. But I locked my elbow and had a grip on it because I figured it was more secure in my hand than it was on my belt.
Yeah. And did you ever engage in any acts of violence at all?
No.
And I know that to be true. The government agreed on that
Yep.
point while we were doing this case. There was never any dispute about that. You entered, you didn't engage in any acts of violence against a person or property. You did get sprayed.
Yep.
And then after, I guess, a few minutes of trying to figure out which way is up, you exited peacefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we know the exact timeline, obviously, because the entire thing was captured on multiple surveillance cameras. So that's how we know exactly how long you were in and exactly what happened. And it confirms there was no acts of violence whatsoever.
Yeah, just to be clear, that was the totality of your involvement in January 6th.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was just caught in the as far as getting sprayed. They were spraying everybody,
Right.
So that stuff's brutal, man. I felt like the Joker. Like my face was all seized up and I couldn't see anything. Finally, when it started to calm down a little bit, I could see light at the end of the hallway. So obviously I knew that was the door. I couldn't see the stairs or anything. I'm surprised I made it down without busting my ass. But I got outside. I heard a female voice said, "Hey, do you need water?" And I poured water over my eyes. And I don't know how long it took but as soon as I got my sight back, I just went back to the hotel.
Every Marine watching this podcast right now knows exactly what you went through because we go into the gas chamber.
Yeah.
They make you take off your mask. And man, you come out and there's stuff coming out of everywhere that you never seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty ugly. You want to drink and flush, and that stuff gets your attention, no question about it. So I know exactly how you felt.
Yeah, I have a lot of vets that are friends of mine and police officers. They have to go through that stuff too. So they're like, yeah, you got a little taste of it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So you went right back to the hotel.
Yeah.
And did your friend go with you? Did you meet your friend there?
And he's a younger guy, and he was definitely the smarter of the two of us because he didn't go up the stairs, and I didn't even notice. I was just like, what the hell is going on here? And he just was a little freaked out by it, I think. So used a little more wisdom than the old guy here.
So then you go back to the hotel, and then I believe it was the next day you went back home to Indiana. Is that right?
Yeah, I went back to the hotel, obviously showered off, tried to get the chemicals off of me, and I just crashed because I didn't. Well, there was a curfew also, but I didn't want to drive, after all that. So I slept for a little bit and drove back.
All right. So how did you find out that the government was looking for you?
I think it was Justin, my buddy, told me as we were driving. He's like, "I'm driving." He's showing me pictures, and I'm like, oh, man. And it seemed like it was a pretty big deal. So, it's a pretty long drive. I think it's about 10 hours from D.C. to where I was going. And, yeah, I mean, that was Thursday. I think I got back home Thursday night and went to my girlfriend at the time's house, and we, were obviously pretty freaked out about what was going on. And by Friday, I found you guys. It was that fast. And Marc reached out immediately, and I was just like, hey, I know I screwed up.
Yeah.
And you asked me in an email, did you have bear spray on you? I said, yeah. And I had no idea that was a crime. I didn't really even think about that. I knew you can't have firearms in D.C. Not that I had any intentions of taking that. I just wanted to be able to have some kind of crowd control if I got into a situation or other people, innocent bystanders that were being threatened, that a non-lethal way of trying to diffuse the situation and get out.
Yeah, let's talk about that and just mention that one of the most serious crimes that you were charged with was entering the Capitol with a deadly weapon.
Yeah.
And under the federal code, bear spray is considered a deadly weapon. So this is a really scary sounding charge.
Yeah.
But really at the end of the day, what it meant is you walked in there for a few minutes and walked out and you had bear spray on your belt.
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember your attitude right from the beginning. Hey, Marc, here's what I did. I want to own it. I'll take full responsibility. I'm a big boy. I made decisions, and I'm going to do my thing. I don't want to play any games. And so you were like, look, I want to surrender. I want to tell them here I am. And so we sprung into action. And I remember we called immediately. We had a few contacts here locally and at the FBI. And so we called them, and then they called Washington, D.C. And I remember them being a little disorganized at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure they were overwhelmed because it was a lot of people involved, and I don't know if there's ever been a case in history where there were so many that they were looking for so many people, and I'm sure it was kind of chaos.
Well, it is literally the biggest prosecution in the history of our country.
Yeah,
did you know that little factoid? It just so happens to be not only in terms of co-defendants, but resources spent to prosecute him.
Yeah, I saw a testimony from some agents that were whistleblowers that were like being pulled off of child trafficking stuff for this. Man, it's like, it's just not. It's messed.
So you surrendered. You went into custody. Do you want to say anything about your time being presumed innocent?
Yeah, what a concept. It was intense. It was definitely intense, and I was in general population for a couple of days, but because I was all over the news, they moved me into solitary. So I would say that this whole situation has by far been the most. I've been through a lot of intense things in my life. Lived hardcore, being a teenager, splitting from home, starting a heavy metal band, and doing what you got to do to make that happen was intense. But dude, nothing compared to J6.
Yeah.
So it was a crucible, and I'm thankful for it. I feel blessed. In so many ways, because you find out who really loves you, who are the parasites, who are the ones that really love you. And I'm blessed, man, because there were a lot of people that stood beside me, even if they didn't publicly, and I get that, but that doesn't matter. It's what are the conversations on the phone? It was a blessing. The entire thing was, because it got me, I stepped off the hamster wheel of the music business and was able to look at my life and reflect. And for that, as brutal as it was, that time of self-reflection, which is all you can do. It took probably 3 weeks for me to be able to get a Bible. We weren't allowed to go to the library. We weren't, they denied us access to the law library. There was literally nothing. And it's been an incredible journey, and it's life-changing in all of the good ways. And that's what I can say about it.
I remember conversations that we had while this case was pending on the subject of finding out what's really important, who's really important, who really has your back. And I remember you saying on more than one occasion, look, this heavy metal lifestyle that I've developed over the last 3 decades, you get a lot of people who aren't really your friends, who aren't really in your corner, who maybe want to kiss up to you at the time because they understand you got the influence and the power in the industry and everything like that. And those are the first people to turn tail and run when the going gets tough.
Yep.
But I remember you being so thankful for those friends and family. And we'll get to it in a little bit when we had our sentencing in this case that was very well attended by people who love you. But I remember that was really important to you.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. That's, it's really what matters. Like I've never been one to buy into the rock star lifestyle anyway. Like I don't need the hero worship, don't desire it, but I am a songwriter. That's what I built. That was my driving force. That was the thing that made me climb through all of the mountains of shit that I did for decades. It's because of that. I had these ideas, heart, soul, totally in, and to be able to make that happen in a production and to see the final result was very satisfying. That was the most satisfying part of my career. All the rest of it was, I actually didn't like it. I didn't like the business. I don't like dealing with the media. I don't like those things. I don't like the drama. I don't like the narcissism. I don't like all of that part of it. It's too much. It's very ego driven, and actually it's a very superficial kind of lifestyle. The songwriting and the songcraft is not, and the passion and love of playing, it's not. But when you get into the business professionally, it changes and you get a little bit jaded. So at least I did. And it was an awesome career and it was an awesome life. And I got to experience many amazing things and travel all over the world and meet some incredible people and visit all these different cultures. And just, it was awesome, and maybe the songwriting thing will come back. But at this particular point in my life, without the desire to write songs, like that spark isn't there, then I don't want to deal with all the rest of it. The only reason that I endured all of it was because of the songcraft.
Yeah. So let's get back to the case and talk about how kind of what transpired while we were representing you and how it ultimately resolved. So this infamous picture of you is making the rounds at this point. It's even published in some very, very big national publications. And there's a hat that you're wearing at the time. Can you tell the audience about the hat and how that became significant?
Yeah. So I heard about Oath Keepers right when it started, and I don't remember exactly what year that was. I would say around somewhere between 2008, 10, maybe. And I heard about it. I saw an interview, and I was like, this is great. And when I read their mission statement, like, I'm all about guys honoring their oaths. That's a big deal. I mean, why,
Sure.
Especially for elected officials or people in the military, police departments. I mean, it just seemed like a very worthy cause to get behind. So I paid for the lifetime membership, and you got a 1-ounce silver coin and a hat and a bumper sticker and a shirt and a lifetime newsletter. And I just became a supporter of them. And that's kind of where it ended,
I remember the government making a big deal out of that. In fact, you're going through hell, you're in custody, and, at that moment in time, Andy and I, job number one is get our guy out of custody. And I remember we got a release hearing on the calendar, and I remember having a very high stakes release hearing. You remember that release hearing, how tense that was? And they wanted to make a big deal out of that Oath Keepers cap. And I remember arguing to the judge, basically, look, Judge, it's just a cap. There's no text messages. There's no email messages. He wasn't at any meetings. He's not involved in any of this stuff. And, that would have been a very bad fact for you had you been involved in sort of, the inner workings of what those guys may or may not have been up to on January 6th. But we successfully distanced you from that mess. And in a contested release hearing, we got the judge to rule for us. And I remember getting you out of custody and how big of a deal that was to just, what was that like from your point of view? Just kind of the day the judge was like, okay, we're going to release this guy and get him out of custody.
Well, it was obviously a relief because the first time we tried to have a bond hearing, they were, no, he's got a weapon in his hand. And I remember I said, those are my Oakley sunglasses.
Right.
And then the magistrate goes, yeah, I guess it's not really a weapon, but still you're too dangerous to be in society. So it's denied. And then at some point they ended up transferring me. That's the thing about I was in 4 different facilities, and in D.C., were the best conditions by far because, first of all, they had us all in 2-man cells, so you have more room. You can move your body. I mean, it sucks, dude. It's not a fun thing, but it was cleaner. You got your hour of rec guaranteed. That did not happen in any of the county jails I was in. And they moved me at some point. So into a place that was just as shitty as Marion County, if not worse. And so by the time we got to that point, I was like, okay, enough of this.
Dude, that was such a big day for me, just being able to get you out of custody. I can't imagine what it was like for you.
Yeah.
Getting released on this thing. So once we got you out of custody, it was like, okay, let's take a breath. And then Andy and I went to work on this case. It was like, how are we going to defend this guy? This guy's caught red-handed. He's inside the Capitol. He's got the bear spray. Their attitude was, we got a solid case against this guy. Our attitude was, this is the biggest prosecution in American history. We're going to fight.
That's right. There was something about this case that immediately offended us, and that is the fact that the government was putting out information about this election being stolen and making a call to action. What do I mean about that? By the government, I mean the Trump administration and high-ranking members of the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself. We're making arguments that this was a stolen and fraudulent election, that our democratic institutions were under attack, and really making what was being interpreted by the prosecuting agency as a call to action for all these co-defendants. And then after the government does this call to action, and a certain amount of citizens comply or oblige them, they then turn around and prosecute their own citizens for following what the government said that they should do and believing what the government said was true.
Yeah, so you and I are pitching this around, and we cooked up this theory that I think we called governmental estoppel, which is, the government, the executive branch, puts this idea in everybody's head. People then believe it and act on it. Now you want to prosecute people for acting on it. Just didn't feel right. And there was, of course, no such defense out there, but it doesn't stop us for bringing it and asserting it and hoping that maybe the judge would allow it. And I remember talking to the assistant United States attorney about this long before the release hearing and saying, look, dude, here's what you guys did. You essentially baited my guy into this belief. Now you're going to prosecute him because he did what would have been the right thing, right? Imagine, an election actually is stolen. And imagine some foreign power comes in and manipulates our election, and the person who lost the election is now getting ready to take over power. I can't say it's the wrong thing to say we're not going to let that happen. And so to set the stage and then prosecute somebody, the very same executive branch, for believing that didn't sound right. And we never got to bring that theory because ultimately, even though we talked to John about it, John was, you can speak for yourself here, but you were like, look, dude, I did this and I'm going to be a man and I'm going to own it and stand up. And so we as lawyers change course.
Yeah, see, there was a really another interesting thing that happened in this case, which is because you were wearing that hat that said lifetime member of the Oath Keepers, the prosecutors assumed that you knew something that you didn't know. I guess
Right.
in their mind, they kind of cooked up, this guy must be one of the master planners of this whole thing. When in fact, it was a piece of merch that you got basically for signing up with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have still been in trouble if I had a different hat on, but it would have been different.
That was the
it
wrong
would have been different.
That was the wrong hat to be wearing
I know.
that day.
And you know what, dude? I brought 3 with me in my suitcase, and I just grabbed that one.
Bad choice.
One was like Devil's Tower, Wyoming, when we went there. Whatever. It was just, I just grabbed that
it
one.
turns
Isn't that
out-
interesting how much the wardrobe choice can make a
It's
Funny.
difference?
crazy.
But it actually turns out to be a good choice, right? Because they believed that you were more involved, and this gave us some leverage, right? So we went to the prosecutor. You want to talk about how that developed?
Yeah, and we kind of, admittedly might have teased that a little bit.
Maybe puffed it a little bit.
Yeah, puffed it up a little bit. Yeah, our guy might be willing to talk to you about what he knows, but we want certain guarantees, and
Right.
we need something in return and everything like that. And we were able to arrange this cooperation agreement where we brought in a couple of agents and some of the prosecutors. And John's required to tell the truth in such a meeting. Of course, by that time we've already kind of secured what we wanted to get out of it, and so John did just that during the cooperation. He told the truth, which is basically, I don't know anything about this organization, guys. I have a hat. I got some merchandise, and that's about all that I can contribute.
Yep.
But interestingly, and this turned out to be a really good piece of leverage for us as well, even though you didn't have any valuable information for the government about that, because that was kept secret and kept under wraps and kept as something that we couldn't talk about for years while all these other prosecutions were going on, there was a value to the government in having all the other members of the Oath Keepers think that you gave some sort of insider information. So we were actually able to, how we structured it, we were able to benefit from the fact that you participated in it, even though you weren't able to give anything valuable.
It's a little bit of inside baseball, right? Because you're thinking, if you don't do this stuff for a living, you think, how does this stuff work? This is how it works, right? You essentially do this secret protected free talk that essentially says, I don't really know anything. They then seal it, and then they say, hey, Jon Schaffer is going to go out and take a plea, and he's going to talk about everything he knows, and they use that leverage to try to get other people to take a plea. From our point of view, this was very important to the judge on sentencing day. Jon Schaffer is going to be the very first guy in this entire prosecution to plead and own up and be a man and go into court and say, here's what I did, judge, I'm going to plead guilty. And that was really very significant for the judge on sentencing day. And I think that, look, had we known there was going to be a pardon at the end of this, that might have affected what we did here. But we didn't know there was going to be a pardon. And, our attitude as defense attorneys is we're getting our guy out. One way or another, we're going to get our guy. That's who we represent. We're getting our guy out, whatever it takes. And it's, it can... Making the sausage in a criminal defense case behind the scenes sometimes gets a little bit ugly back there.
Then here was my favorite part legally of everything that happened leading up to the sentence. The Federal Court of Appeals started reviewing the charges that the prosecutors were bringing against January 6 co-defendants and found that they had exceeded their authority in some of these charges, one of which specifically applied in your case. So you were charged with a federal crime of obstruction, which could carry up to 20 years sentence. It's a very serious crime. Among the list of things you were charged with, it was on the more serious side. But that was appealed up to the Court of Appeals, and the judges in the Fisher case, which people should read up on, found that the prosecutors had really stretched this obstruction statute way, way, way too far, to the point where it exceeded what the purpose of the statute was. So just a quick breakdown there. This statute, this obstruction charge, was basically made in the wake of Enron. We wanted to punish people who were under government investigation and who were shredding important documents that the government was trying to get a hold of. And so the statute basically said, if you obstruct a formal governmental proceeding, we can charge you with this very serious crime. So the prosecutors decided, let's charge the January 6th co-defendants with this. They're trying to, obstruct an official government proceeding, and that proceeding is them being able to count the votes of the presidential election. And so that's close enough, and so let's charge them with this very serious federal felony. The Court of Appeals said, no, that is stretching it way beyond what it was intended for. And as a result, we were able to get you into an even better position.
Yep. Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't see anybody running around the Capitol going, where are the documents?
Yeah, let's
Where's
shred the documents.
I forgot my shredder at home.
I mean, this is a different kind of case, right? I mean, it's a very high-profile case, and you're the first guy, and they're coming super aggressive, and our job simply is to protect our guy. So we're going to do what we got to do to get our guy out. But anyways, it all turned out well. Your case kept getting continued, right? Because they wanted to kind of leave you hanging out there just so they could get some other cases resolved. And we, of course, indulged that. It went on and on and on.
I think that is really important for people to understand, because a lot of people were probably wondering, why is this being continued over and over again when some of the other cases are wrapping up quickly? Recall what we were talking about earlier, which is there's value to the government in the other co-defendants thinking that Jon knew something of value. And so part of the agreement that added value to our plea and our agreement was to agree to continue it so that they could continue making the co-defendants think that we had something that we didn't.
I got to say, it was really hard for me. Yeah, because it just felt, but I mean, I hired you guys to keep me out of a cage. That was the whole point. And you did, so it's like, it bothered me. It did, because it's not it. There was a lot of things about this that bothered me.
Your life's on hold the whole time.
Yeah, that too. But it was really more about honor. That's what bothered me. Because it felt I just didn't have anything. You know what I mean? If I did, I wouldn't have. You know what I mean? So it's a different thing. Like I had to go. The sausage, man. It's the sausage. And it's new to me, but I have, always known the importance of criminal defense attorneys in a free society. It's different when you're in it.
Yeah.
And we were in it. We were in the trenches, man.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to call you guys friends. I mean, after we went through all this, man, and it's the silver lining in the whole thing.
Oh,
there's a lot, actually. It's hard getting through that, but it's a crucible. It's a test, and I don't know, man. It's a gift. It's crazy, but it's a gift.
Yeah. We had countless conversations in the years leading up to this, because it did get continued for years. And I remember there were times when it was really tough for you. And I remember we had to have a bunch of conversations with you where we're like, Jon, just hang on, man. Every single one of these continuances, we're gaining more value. We're putting you in a better position. Then we were keeping an eye on what was going on at the Court of Appeals with, the judges not favorably looking at some of these charges. Hang in there, Jon. This is going to get better for us. Hang in there. And you were a trooper, my friend. Mm-hmm. Like, we understand your life is on hold. Your life is on hold while all of this is pending. But one of the biggest things you did to help us was you made the best of the situation. You gave us lots of talking points at your sentencing, talking about, hey, look, Judge, he could have totally turned over and rolled over and crouched in the fetal position and been completely, depressed the whole time. Instead of that, he got a new job, he found employment, he continued with his life, he kept perfect compliance with all release conditions, you took care of your mom a lot in that time. You were just being as productive as possible.
Yep. I mean, it was a challenge because I'm a planner, set goals, get them done, and then all of a sudden everything's on hold. And for that amount of time to go by, it was definitely a challenge. There's no doubt. But like I said, at the end of the day, and the macro view of this is, it was a gift. It was a blessing.
The other thing that's going on is you're getting maligned in the media,
Big
right?
time.
You're losing record contracts. Your reputation's going in the trash. We could have made a statement at any time, but it was pretty clear that the prosecution didn't want you making statements.
Oh, yeah.
And not only about, you're being maligned in the media, not only about all that stuff, but also people are saying, oh, and he's now cooperating, so he's given a bunch of information against the other co-defendants in the case, so they just assumed. And this was, of course, the intent of entering into this deal with the government, was so that people would assume you actually had something valuable. Right. But people, you were being maligned for that reason too. Oh, now he's cooperating, giving important information against other oath keepers. So we have no doubt that was very difficult for you to go through, and we couldn't talk about it. We couldn't address it publicly.
Yeah, it's quite possibly the hardest part of it. I mean, as much wreckage as the whole thing caused, and I own my behavior, so I'm not the victim here. I screwed up. That's for sure. But the fallout, was a lot of that with family and friends, business, all that stuff. But I think that was the thing that bothered me the most. It just, because the people that know me, they know my honor's a big deal. My word is a big deal.
Dude, that's an understatement. Yep. We brought in a mitigation expert in this case who's had a lot of time to work on this case. It was probably the biggest mitigation report I think I've ever seen in my entire career. You had tons of character letters. And I remember reading through that. And every page, it was, wow, this guy is an amazing guy. He's had an amazing life. It's all about high character. It's all about high levels of trust with people. It's always about, Jon's the best friend you could have had. Jon's the best this, the best that. It was an amazing mitigation package. I mean, I felt like I really got to know you reading the background investigation about you. I remember walking in, talking to Andy, said, this is a very impressive guy. This is a guy I'd really be honored to be friends with. And when we got there at sentencing, after the judge had reviewed that and the people who showed up and the things that they said at sentencing, Andy, maybe you could talk about the
Well,
judges.
it's not only, I was going to add in there into the mitigation report, something that really impacted me, because it wasn't only your personal relationships, which were amazing, and those character letters just absolutely touching, but it was also the story of you as a musician in your career. How many lives around the world you've touched, how many people's lives. 13-year-old Andy, his life was improved by your music. You touch people around the world in ways that you have no idea, you're totally not cognizant of. And the judge definitely recognized it in this case. And so, yeah, I mean, that sentencing, that was a heartfelt sentencing, man. That was a heavy one.
It was a heavy one, but there was a moment that was one of my favorite moments. Do you remember that?
I think I know which one you're talking about.
The judge comes out, a federal judge. We had presented everything. We presented everything. The air was tense. You could have sliced it with a knife, right? And here's the federal judge. Now he's going to get his chance to speak, and he starts talking. And at some point he says, Mr. Schaffer, I wasn't familiar with your music at all. And I got to say, I listened to some of your music. And then he says, I got to say, and there was this pause, right? It seemed like it went on forever.
He said, I got to say, it's not my cup of tea.
We all started laughing. The whole courtroom.
The whole courtroom cracked up. But then he said, but I can tell that you unify people with your art. I can tell when I look at those videos, when I see the crowd cheering, when I see everybody coming together, you've made a career out of bringing people together, not separating people. It was beautiful, actually.
That you were painted as somebody who maybe even was a racist or didn't like other. It was so far from the reality of things. And the judge could see that. The judge could see that. I mean, the judge was also a member of a minority group and literally could see how impressive a guy you were. I don't remember his exact statement. It was like, you deserve to be forgiven for this.
That's what he said. He said, I hope your fans around the world forgive you because you deserve to be forgiven.
You don't hear that very often.
This judge kind of went much further than the usual. Like when I've told this story to friends and family and other lawyers, they were surprised to hear that the judge went out this far in terms of the personal connection that he seemed to have with you on the record in open court. It was very impressive.
Yeah, I have no experience at being a criminal, so it was new, but I felt like, I just keep saying it was a blessing, the whole thing, and having you guys on my team, huge, and that experience was, just another unbelievable experience. And
I felt like we've been through something together.
We have been.
It was an ordeal,
and we're going to go through more together.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But I want to share two more little important tidbits about that sentencing that made an impact on me. Number one is that we had people come in from all around the country, and they volunteered to come in. I want to come and talk to the federal judge about Jon Schaffer. I want to tell this judge, before he passes his sentence, the impact that Jon has made in my life. So that was really impressive. We had friends, family, people from your congregation, just all kinds, a great group of folks that all flew out to D.C. to speak on your behalf. Then we gave our oral arguments. The government gets to go, and we gave our oral argument. But I remember another moment from that sentencing, because as we talked about earlier, we had dinner the night before. It was our first time actually having dinner, sitting down.
First time meeting in person after all those years.
We talked from jail phones and video calls and everything like that. And so we had an in-person meeting. We had a lovely dinner. It was awesome. Where we spent some time talking about the case, but Marc and I had our arguments prepared for months before this, so we didn't need to spend too much time about that, and actually got to get to know you a little bit more on the personal side. And Marc, I don't know if you remember saying this, but I remember it was when you were talking to the judge. You said, Judge, I had dinner with Mr. Schaffer last night, and I wish you could just go have a cup of coffee with him. There's certain things I'm not going to be able to convey to you right now. I could tell you all day about how great of a guy he is and how much he's impacted his friends, family, and fans around the world. But I wish that you could pause this proceeding right now and go get a coffee with Jon, because you're going to leave impressed.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to convey that. It's hard to, even people watching this right now, they don't know Jon Schaffer. Even if they've been aware of him and followed his music and they're fans, you get to know somebody when you sit down and talk to him. And this is a guy, I just feel so honored to be friends with him. I feel so honored to be on his friend list. And I'm really excited for our friendship. And so I kind of feel the same, like we went through, We didn't go through what he went through, but it was arduous for us too, because we really wanted to get a good result for him, as we do for all of our clients. But Jon Schaffer is just one of the more impressive human beings I think I've ever represented in 30 plus years of doing this work.
I also noticed he started playing your music over the loudspeakers in the law firm.
Yeah.
I got to say,
which I love.
It's damn good. If you haven't listened to Iced Earth, and I haven't been tuned in, Andy's on me because I'm a little bit late to the party here.
Only a couple decades, Mark.
But the anthem to celebrate your life, are you kidding me? If I said to one of my kids, I said, could you imagine if somebody wrote a song that was going to encompass maybe everything I'm trying to say is celebrate your life, right? We're all here for a short time. We're brothers and sisters. This guy wrote the anthem to celebrate your life, which is an amazing song off of Dystopia, I think.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be your friend, man, and yours too. I mean, it's just what's going on here at the firm is a lot of wonderful things, and I think we're going to make a difference. I really do.
Let's talk about the end result of your case, and then we'll talk about the future.
Okay.
End result of the case is, after all was said and done, you originally were facing very serious federal charges, obviously, that could have landed you in prison for an excess of 20 years statutorily. Probation was the end result. I think the judge was very, very impressed.
Without an extra day of jail.
With no extra jail. And we even had the prosecutor agreeing to it at the end of that sentencing hearing, which was very nice. But you walked out of court with us that day, which is always better than than having to go into custody.
Yep.
Then Trump gets elected about a week later, maybe 2 weeks later. I remember your sentencing was late October of 2024. Trump gets elected. Trump had promised to pardon the January 6th hostages, is I believe how he phrased it, and gave a sweeping pardon on day one of right when he was sworn into office. And I remember immediately being in contact with you saying, there's good news here, my friend.
Yeah, it was a huge deal. I mean, and I have to say, that's what makes me think Trump is not your regular politician, because there's so many promises made and almost none of them ever kept. And that was just an amazing thing, because I know some people there, I'm sure, did some bad things, and what I did was stupid. That's for sure. But we believed that and I think our country's in serious trouble. I mean, serious trouble. But at that point, and you got to preface it with the whole summer of love and all that. That's the mindset that people were in. And so, but I will always be grateful to President Trump for this, big time. And I know everybody else will be too.
Yeah. So, there's an interesting dichotomy here that I think is worth dwelling on for a second. So while you are admitting that you engaged in what the government has branded as criminal conduct, the motivating factor behind a lot of the pardons was the extent of over-prosecution that happened here. Mark and I, we've seen way worse conduct than this in federal cases, actually violent conduct, injuring people, injuring officers, injuring other people, and everything like that. We have never in our career seen it charged this seriously. Looking at over 20 years for what you did, which is walk in, be in there for about 9 minutes and get sprayed in the face with pepper spray and then walk out. It boggles the mind. I mean, we've seen homicide cases where the plea offers are significantly less than that. So I think that was a big motivating factor to the pardons as well.
Yeah, I think so too, because it was just brutal political persecution. I mean, some of the people, I felt terrible for the guys that I was locked up with that were stuck with public defenders, that we're very well aware of where their political leanings are. I don't have anything against public defenders, so I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, like, in that city, in that district, there's a political bent. They go one way about 94 or 95% of every election. So I just felt terrible for those guys, because it was clear what was going on there. And there were people that were literally left to rot without any any proper due process. Like it.
Yeah,
it's insane.
I was about to say, like, from my calculation and experience, just looking at similar conduct and how it's charged, I was about to say, well, maybe misdemeanor trespassing would have been a better and more appropriate and more just charge in this case. But then again, you can't really plead to that factual basis, given that the cops opened the door and waved people in. So I don't know what, maybe a civil violation. I don't know.
You know, it's rough justice. Sometimes they refer to it as. You were punished for what you did, even though there was a pardon here. You were punished. You were more than punished for what you did. But like you said, you know, life throws things at you. You don't have control of that sometimes. What you do have control is how you respond to it.
Exactly.
And how you've responded to this whole experience. And I think you're still coming out of it, right? This is traumatic.
Yep.
You're going to do some great things in the world. I have absolutely no doubt about that. You have the right attitude. You see the silver lining. You're not going to let this get you down and beat you. This is just cause to flip the page and start a new chapter.
Yeah, I trust God's plan for my life. I really do. And I believe there's a reason that everything happens in your life, and that there are consequences when you get off course of what his plan for your life may be. Maybe that's the deal here. I don't know, but it has solidified my resolve in ways that it's hard to express. At the same time, I go with the flow so much more now.
Yeah.
You know, I realized in that moment that I have no control over anything except me and my actions, my everything. So, and you being my friend and advising me to read certain books, talking to me about Stoicism, all that thing, my journey to faith, all of that works together beautifully. But I don't even get angry in traffic anymore. And I used to get pissed off. You know, I mean, I'd be like, now it's just like, dude, come on, you know? And then I'm not going to let it interrupt my flow, man.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Have you ever read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
No, we were just talking about that.
Okay, I'm not surprised he was trying to get you to read it. No, we love it at this law firm. Habit 1 has always been my favorite. It will always be my favorite. The very first. If you don't have time to read the whole book, just read Habit 1.
Proactive.
Habit 1, be proactive, says that there's empowerment to that moment when you realize that in between stimulus and response is your ability to choose how you respond.
That's
powerful.
That's where your power is right there.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
right
man.
now.
Get that little pause. Something happens in the world. Hold on. I get to choose.
Yeah.
I get to select what I'm doing here. Make it, and they say in that space, if you make that bigger, that's where all your freedom is right there. So anyways, at the end of all this, I'm saying to Andy, dude, we've been trying to attract high character people to this law firm. I got a crazy idea. I mean, I don't know. I mean, John's kind of starting a new chapter. I mean, what do you think about me just sort of throwing out? Maybe we could get John over here to kind of be part of our team and kind of work on this whole AOR project. And maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's a crazy idea, but I'm going to throw it out to the guy. Remember that? We talked on the phone. I said, I don't know, man. Maybe you should come over here and work with us. So let's do something.
I was blown away by that and absolutely in. And then getting out here and meeting the crew, and there's something happening here and it's good. I mean, once people really learned all 3 parts of what is going on with Attorneys for Freedom, it's amazing. And I think it's, you know, I really believe that we can make a difference. I really believe that.
When you say all 3 parts, you're talking about the law firm Attorneys for Freedom, which, you know, we're already the only law firm in the nation that does nothing but self-defense now, but we're not interested in number 2, best law firm. And the AOR program, everybody who watches this knows about AOR. But then the third piece, the piece that you and I really like, live and let live. Like, we want to fight for freedom here.
Yes.
Hardcore, no compromise. It's a freedom issue. And I think that is really, like, you've had my book for quite a while here, and it's not even done yet. You're a guy I wanted to read and just give me some feedback on. But I think it's that project. I mean, you could speak to this, but probably that lured you over here more than anything else.
Yeah, I think they're also interconnected. Like I said earlier, I understand the importance of a criminal defense, pro-freedom criminal defense attorney, attorney's role in our society. I understand the importance of that, especially after having gone through this. But it's strange to me that there are kind of statist criminal defense attorneys.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's an odd thing. Because
Most of them.
Yeah, and
actually are.
it goes against kind of the very nature of it. So it's a weird, but there's a lot of weird things going on. But anyway, I think all three parts of what you guys have going on here are absolutely connected, equally as important, but the end result is to shoot for that live and let live, that ultimate free society, free thinking. And I think with some work, for sure, we can get people to break out of that left-right paradigm, which we have going on here, and in other countries there's other similar situations. But I mean, I'm an American. I'm always going to be concerned and about my country first, and especially because of this power that we have around the world. What happens here matters.
Yeah.
You know, it really matters. So we got to get our house in order.
Yep.
I think this is a beautiful way of doing it.
We should lead by example. That's the best way to convince the world that freedom works. Let's make our country the most free society we can possibly make it. Right? We know what that results in: freedom, peace, highest level of prosperity, strongest military. Like, that's how you get the strongest military. You need prosperity. You need wealth.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I also see them as very interconnected projects. Kind of how I think about it is that the Attorneys for Freedom law firm fights for freedom on an individual level. This is when an individual is charged with a crime. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's when the government's coming for you and trying to put you in a cage. We fight for an individual's freedom with the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. AOR's fighting for freedom on a national level. We're going up a level. We're thinking, how can we make a difference in our national freedoms? And that's by promoting important freedom principles on a national stage. And then the Live and Let Live project is about taking those principles even beyond our national borders and promoting and fighting for freedom on a global level. How do we get people who don't embrace freedom around the world to reconfigure their brains in order to understand that it actually is in their best interest to embrace principles of freedom?
Yeah, and that's the challenge, is the delivering a message in a clear and concise way that can get people to clearly see this is the only way. They're actually, when you read Marc's book and when you break it down into the aggressor, non-aggressor, that's, forget about Republican, Democrat, forget about all of that. That doesn't matter. And but getting that message to people there's going to be challenges. There's no doubt.
I love how you've been here now a week, and you've started to kind of get a taste of our culture here.
I got it first day, man.
Dude, we've been bringing in first of all, high character, hardcore pro-freedom people who really understand the mission that we're on here. We're not just hiring anybody. Of course, we don't always get it perfect, but when you aim for a certain thing, you get that thing more and more. And that's kind of like what we saw with you, right? Here's a high character guy who's totally committed to freedom. This is a guy who should be on our team.
I'm honored, man.
Yeah, no, I guess we haven't formally said it, but yeah, and Jon is joining our team here in the AOR section. So I'm super excited to have you representing for Attorneys on Retainer and AFF. And so I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm excited about it.
We also want to tap into your artistic creativity too. We've already had talks about how we can better promote on a marketing level and even merchandise.
Yep.
You have a lot of experience in an industry that's all about selling yourself and marketing. So there's all kinds of talents that you bring to the table that I think we got a great win-win here.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like I totally feel that way. And it's the mission, man, that fires me up. So that's the root. That's the base.
Yep.
And but I think what is going on here, it's going to spread. I think it's going to get huge, and I do believe that once the people really understand what it's all about, they're going to be in. And just with the clients that I've been able to speak to so far, they're
coming over to AOR because I think we're building trust with the market.
Yeah.
It's not because our price is a little lower, we offer something other guys. It's like, nah, I know what these guys are about.
Yep.
And that's the way we want it. We want to build trust with the market. It takes time to build trust. But I think there's some people that are just loyal to AOR. They just know what we're about. They like what we're about. Hey, look, if you don't like what we're about, that's fine. We don't have to be for everybody. But if you want to support sort of a pro-freedom cause, and we're doing this now with the Attorneys on Retainer Association. We're dropping lawsuits in federal courts. We're advocating to try to change the law.
I know you like our battle that we're waging against the Commerce Clause.
Absolutely. And I I joined AOR just because of that.
Yeah.
I was like, because like everything that happened when I saw that, Andy filing his amicus brief regarding the Commerce Clause in the Ninth Circuit, and I was like, dude, I gotta get behind these guys. I'm going to be a member just based on that.
Dude,
so
we're just warming up. If you understand the Commerce Clause and the damage that has done to our country, how that's been, I mean, this is, I don't know, I'm going to estimate 75% of everything the federal government's doing is probably based on this, I would say, misinterpretation of the Commerce Clause. And so this is all in my book. I don't know if you've reached that part in my book.
I'm so excited because we haven't even released this public schedule yet, so I guess this is the first time we're talking about it. But we have a briefing schedule of all the different cases that we plan on filing a Commerce Clause challenge for, all lined up, ready to go. Plus, Marc and I are currently working with a professor, faculty member at a very prestigious law school, and we're working on a law review article that we're planning to publish on this exact subject. So lots of fun stuff in this particular battle coming up.
We're going big, man.
That's why I'm here, man. That's because I want to watch you guys do your work. I believe.
Well, now it's us, man. Now it's our project.
Yeah, but you're the attorneys, and you're the attorneys for freedom. And that's important, and really, really important, because without what you guys do, that collapse is so much closer than we realize, because this is the last. It's like it's the last in line before things just go completely haywire. What the work that you guys do is so important in a free society. It is the most important thing, because you got to make sure you're making sure that the government is doing their due diligence, and whatever. If they want to put somebody in a cage,
they got to come to us.
They got to come through Attorneys for Freedom.
Yeah, man. So I'm so honored to have you as part of our team, man.
It's my honor.
It's the best part of the whole story, in my view.
I am thrilled. I am absolutely thrilled, because I think we're going to do something awesome here.
See where it goes.
Excited to have you on the team, my friend.
Man.
All right, everybody, go and check out attorneysonretainer.us if you want to learn all about our self-defense program and our activism throughout the gun community, throughout the United States and beyond. That's attorneysonretainer.us. Go and check out attorneysforfreedom.com to learn all about our law firm and how we defend people like our good friend John here in the criminal justice system, and always hold the government to their burden, pushing them for every inch in every criminal case that we fight. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave us a comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend. Until next time, this has been attorneys Andy Marcantel and Marc J. Victor with our friend Jon Schaffer, signing out. Peace.